Hi, this is Nancy Earald, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I have Barbara Berger here today. And Barbara is joining us from Copenhagen, Denmark. And welcome to High Road to Humanity.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. She's written this book, you guys. And, I was telling her before the show, it's really interesting that somebody on the other side of the world from us in the United States, and I've had a lot of people on from all over the world, but the principles are all coming to be the same. And her book is, although she's got some really cool stuff in here, her book is Healthy Models for Relationships. And nobody's really come about and talked about relationships. It's the basic principles behind good relationships with your partner, your family, your parents, your children, your friends, your colleagues, and all the other people in your life. Yeah, she's holding it up. It's an awesome book. And I didn't know, Barbara, you've written how many books?
I think I'm up to 20 now, actually. I've written really a lot of books for many, many years. So, but most of my books have been about the science of the mind, the power of the mind, understanding mind and consciousness. Mm-hmm. And I have been coaching people for many, many years all around the world. And so this is my latest book, this Healthy Models for Relationship. And it's the result of all my many years of coaching people. And I have learned over the years that no matter where people are in their spiritual journey and the evolution of consciousness, almost everyone has relationship problems.
I know. Well, everybody sit back and relax. I'm going to read a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, and then I'm going to read Barbara's bio. But sit back and relax a minute. She says, what do healthy relationships look like? And I think we all are wondering that at this point. Most of the difficulties we face on a daily basis have to do with our relationships. And this is true, be it with our partners, families, children, parents, or with our friends, neighbor, or colleagues at work. And this is why most of us really want to know how we can best get along with other people. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm giving a quick gist, but that's it. Now, Barbara is she's American born, so I can hardly wait to hear your story. She's the best-selling author of 15 self-empowerment books. After Barbara left the USA to protest against the Vietnam War in the 1960s, she settled in Scandinavia and continued her quest to learn more about the science of the mind, spirituality, and psychology. Today, she gives workshops and coaching to help her clients harness the power of their minds. And like I said before, she lives in Copenhagen, Denmark. Tell us your story. This is an interesting one. I couldn't wait to hear. Where were you born and raised, and at what?
I grew up in Washington, D.C.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, what a trip. They found some cocaine. They found some cocaine in the White House. That's the big news, FYI. Sorry, they don't know whose it is. We kind of do, but they're not telling us. Anyway, I had to get that in. So
I have to hear that one more time. What did you just say? What did you do?
They found cocaine in the White House. You heard this, right?
I heard that. Yes, of course I heard it.
But
it wasn't you and it wasn't me, right? So
I don't know. Anyway, talk to us. So you grew up in Washington. Obviously you grew up.
Well, the short version is my father was a top guy in the Pentagon, a military man. And
really,
when I was a young girl, I had a boyfriend, and it was in the beginning of the Vietnam War, and he got drafted.
Oh, wow.
And so we were against the war in Vietnam, and I ran away from home, and we went underground. We were underground for several years.
Oh my God.
The army was there. It was in the beginning of the Vietnam War. There weren't that many. It became a huge protest movement eventually, but we were sort of
You were the beginning.
Yeah, we were in the beginning.
Oh my God.
So the short version is of the first. So we decided to go to Europe, and we came to England, and we got deported back to the United States. And
you did.
Yeah, and then we went to Canada, and that was eventually lots of American young guys. They went to Canada, but we must have been the first ones because there was no one there, and it was cold. And we decided that we would go back to New York again where we were living, but it was too dangerous for Steve. And so we decided that the last place we could go to was Mexico. And so we hitchhiked from New York City to Mexico City. It took us about 3 weeks. And when we got to Mexico City, this is a short version of, but we had been on the run for 1.5 years by the time we got to Mexico City. And we arrived there. We didn't speak Spanish. We only had $150 in our pockets. We didn't know anyone. And I mean, I was just a young kid at that time.
How old were you, Barbara?
I was, when we first came there, I was 19.
Yeah.
And
you
so
thought you knew it all, but you didn't.
And so on the very first day we arrived in Mexico City, we didn't know what to do, where to go. We ended up in the middle of Mexico City is a huge, huge place. We ended up in this park in the middle of the city, and we were sitting on a bench, just sort of staring into nothingness, not knowing what to do. And I remember I noticed that there was this very special looking man sort of going around, and he was a tall, thin guy. He looked sort of like he came out of a Dostoevsky novel, and he had this big thing of paper, and he was sketching people in the park.
Okay.
And then finally he came over to Steve and I, and we were still sitting on this bench, and he asked if he could draw our faces. He said, "You're very beautiful. Can I sketch you?" And we said, "Sure, go ahead." So he sat down on the grass before us, and he had this big block of paper, and he was sketching us. And then suddenly he put it down, and he looked at us, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And up until that point, we never told anyone the truth. We always said, we were students, we were studying, we were visiting relatives or whatever. But for some reason, again, the divine mind was at work. It was me who said, I suddenly blurted it out, that we were on the run from the US Army, and we didn't have any money, and we didn't know what to do, and we were afraid. And I said it all. And this guy, he just sat there and listened.
Yeah.
And then he looked at us and he said, "I'm from Sweden. I'm a pacifist, and I think you're doing the right thing. So I will take you home with me to Sweden, and I will take care of you.
Oh,
don't be afraid anymore." And so he did. And it turned out that he was a very famous Swedish painter, and his brother was a very famous journalist in Sweden's biggest newspaper. And so when we came to Sweden, we became minor heroes, you could say, because we were sort of the younger generation of Americans who were against the war in Vietnam. And Sweden at that time was a neutral country, and they were very much against the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And so we sort of became spokesmen or representatives for the youth in America, the youth revolution. And at the same time, I was so traumatized by all this. So I started writing down for my own sake, as a kind of therapy for myself, what had happened to us on this journey that we had been on. And so I was just writing this, and then one of our friends who kept coming over and seeing me write, he asked me one day, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm just writing down about what happened. And he said,
journaling. You were journaling.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, can I read it? And I said, sure. So he took it. This guy, he took what I had written, but then without me knowing it, he gave it to one of Sweden's biggest publishers who decided to print it.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was only 20 years old, and I suddenly became this famous writer. The book was published in Sweden and Denmark, and so I became sort of a spokesperson for the youth revolution and all of that stuff. So that's how I came to Denmark. That's the short.
Wow. I just want to sit down and have coffee with you and hear all the good stories. This is awesome.
Well, actually, I just wrote another book about this is the longer version, which is my autobiography, which starts with this story that I'm telling you now, and about this journey and all of that stuff. So, but people can buy all these books on my website if they're interested.
I'm going to have you back for this one, because that's like a show in itself. Well, I need to ask you a question, because as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, did you come back and see your parents? Did you let your mom and dad know where you were? I mean, they had to have been, even though you were 19, 20 years old, they still had to have been worried about you.
It's complicated. You could say the connection between the book that we're talking about and my own childhood and my own background. It wasn't so much, I had already run away actually before this with the Vietnam War, because I came from a very dysfunctional family. And even though my father was a top military man, it was my mother who was the petty tyrant in the family.
Was she a narcissist?
Definitely. And my father was a non-assertive man. So he never took care or had healthy. So many of the things that I have learned from my own experience.
I figured, you know what? And I'm going to tell you this, and we're going to get into this, but I did write down on my notes at one point, narcissist, empath, because I'm an empath. My mom was a narcissist, but they were our greatest teachers.
Absolutely, but it's the negative example. Teaching by negative example. I would much rather see if I can do it with positive example.
Positive reinforcement, right. Well, and you go through this book and you say that you give us the basic principles behind good relationships. And one of the first things that you say, I really love that you're bringing back values, because you say every person has equal worth and equal rights, which is true. And it's almost like, and I want you to address this, because I feel like
I've just to sort of go back and sort of a little bit more of an overview. What I learned from coaching and doing therapy with people over many, many years, I found out that, as I said to begin with, that everyone has relationship challenges to some degree. Right. But what I found out was that in order to help people, I found out that my concept, if I could define a healthy model, in other words, if I could outline, which is what I do in the book, what does a healthy couple relationship look like? What does a healthy parent-child relationship? If I could outline what a functional, healthy, respectful relationship looks like, then when people came to me, I found out if they had a problem in their relationship, then they could take their own relationship and hold it up to the healthy model. And it made it much easier for people to identify where the problem was, because everybody who comes to me, they know that they feel some kind of discomfort. They know that something is bothering them, but they often can't really identify what it is exactly. Okay. And so, in other words, if you could identify that it's a lack of healthy boundaries, or it's a lack of constructive, respectful communication, if you could define what was off, then you could actually do something about it. So that's sort of how the concept behind this book began. It came sort of naturally out of my own work with people. Right. But then the next thing is, apropos your question, the healthy models, they're all based on the basic democratic principles, which again is that each person has inherent worth. Right. In other words, if you go back to the Declaration of Independence, that famous, I have it here. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. Yes. That they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So with that is the sort of the foundation statement of democracy. Mm-hmm. And in a democratic society, each person has inherent worth. In other words, supposedly we have one person, one vote in a democratic society. In other words, you have a right to have your voice heard. It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are, black or white, young or old. So that is sort of the fundamental platform. And then I ask in the beginning of the book, well, okay, how well are we doing in our family relationships, in our partnerships, in terms of these principles? So that's the basis of all the models and chapters in the book, trying to compare healthy to unhealthy, functional to dysfunctional.
Well, what I see in the world, and it's interesting that you talk about, is that we have lost respect for each other. And
really problematic.
huge. Well, no, it's huge. First of all, I just want to, I'm so glad you're addressing it. I've addressed it, but there aren't many people that really talk about it. I always think about, what's her name that does the song RESPECT, because we
Yes.
don't even respect, like I went to the movies yesterday. I'll just give you a little example. I mean, you can't go anywhere without people just being crazy, so I decided to go to the movies. I wanted to go see the new movie, The Sound of Freedom, which if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. And I'm going to do The Sound of Freedom. And so I get there and the place is pretty packed, but I decide to kind of go down front so I don't like interrupt people. So I go down this aisle and this lady's like, "Oh my God, don't trip over my leg." And I'm like, "I'm not going to trip over your leg. I just want to sit down." But it's like, and the same thing going out, but it's the same, people think they're the only one. I'm the only one here. I am the most important. And that is what our society has become. I bring this little analogy up for that reason, because it's like, whatever happened to, "Oh, yes, let me let you in"? Common courtesy. "Oh, I'm so glad to see you. Oh, hello." What happened to that? What happened to the kind smile or the welcoming?
Well, again, the only thing that we have to work with, as I say to everyone, getting real about the human condition, we can only do the best that we can where we are with who we meet. So in other words, that we have to embody the respect, the love, the kindness that we would like to see. I mean,
From others. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's our job. That's your job. That's my job. I mean, that's all
Yeah.
I do every single day. But
Well, yeah.
But we cannot get inside other people's heads and control their level of consciousness, their psychological, spiritual development. That's beyond us.
Right. But when you talk about in this book, I love so much, and I don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but it's, people have become doormats. You even talk about this, people pleasers, not standing up for themselves, and it almost feels like people just need to embody their own power again. What do you think, Barbara?
Well, again, one of the chapters is about, I mean, I have a lot about boundary violations, and then what do we do about it? In other words, so learning to be assertive, learning to have healthy boundaries, learning how to have healthy self-defense in these situations that you're talking about. That's something that most of us have not learned and that we need to practice. So I have a lot of tips and ideas, and when people come to me for sessions, a lot of them are people pleasers or whatever they are, and we work on, first of all, what are the underlying beliefs behind this behavior that we have to clean up. But then once we have done that, then I try to help train them into being assertive and healthy self-defense, and doing this in a constructive, kind way. Right. It's really difficult to learn to be assertive because we haven't learned that.
Right. And I want to bring something up, and I brought it up a little bit earlier. I feel like, and I just want to get because you talk to a lot of people, and I want to get your feel for this, and you're in a different place. I see a lot of empaths and a lot of narcissists, and I feel like it's because we're here for a reason. The empaths are supposed to wake up, take their power back, and establish boundaries. And the narcissists force them to do that. What do you think about this? I mean, that's what I see. What do you think?
Well, the thing that I would say that I use this model in several of my books, that we have to understand that the levels of consciousness that people are, each soul is on their own evolutionary journey.
Right.
And if you look at the levels of consciousness from the most, as you're talking about, people who it's all about me, and that's a low level of consciousness. People who have not evolved yet to the point where they have empathy, they can see that there are other people around them, that they can be considerate, and so on. So if you look at realistic, I call my approach getting real. So if we're realistic about the human condition, it's not a criticism, it's just an acknowledgement that the higher up in consciousness you go, it's kind of like a pyramid. The less people there are.
I know. Oh my God.
But the other thing, there's another important thing, and that is that the higher levels of consciousness are more powerful than the lower levels.
Well, sure. Yeah.
So the frequencies of love, kindness, thankfulness, gratitude, compassion, and all, they're high frequency energies. And so even though you could say that the number of people who are on the lower levels far outweighs the number of people on the higher levels are the more powerful ones. So it's someone like you who's so aware of these things. It's your responsibility to embody all of the things that you know in all of these different situations.
Yes, you know what? And it's taken me a long time. As you're telling, I have to tell you something. I used to be, I'm such a spitfire. Of course, I'm older now. But when I was younger, if people would make me mad, I would just like, oh, screw you and la, 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 la. Now I'm so evolved. I'm like, oh, well, God bless you. And I mean it. I totally mean it. But you're
well,
right.
again, if we go back to the observations about the nature of consciousness, so
Yeah.
it makes it easier to clear this up. In
Okay.
other words, that it's important to understand that every soul, first of all, when we're reincarnated, as the level of consciousness we have when we leave the body, when we come back into a new body, we start, that's what the Buddhists say too, we start where we left off. You don't go back to the beginning every time.
Okay.
And so where you start, that's sort of your platform. And so when you've had all these experiences that you've already had, then you start here. But then in each lifetime, it's also important to understand that when we come into this baby body and we're in a family, every child gets programmed from day one with the belief systems of their parents. Right. So we get all this information, good, bad, who's right and who's all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to understand that everyone that we meet everyone's in their own subjective bubble with their programming, what they've learned, the level of consciousness they came in with. So every person is different. And it's really, really important in terms of what is it that we can do something about and what is it we can do nothing about. We have to understand that we can't get inside of another person's head and control the way they think and feel.
Right.
But when we have said that, it's still important to understand. So you can say, what is it that I can't change? And what is it that I can change? What can I do something about and what can I not do anything about? And the thing that's so important to remember is you can always do something about your own frequency, about your own point of view, and you're the one who makes the choice. I always say to clients in every situation, no matter what happens, you always have the choice of how you're going to relate to what's going on. Are you going to focus on all the negative, everything you don't like about it? And that's a low frequency. And because of law of attraction, you will get more of that. Or are you going to focus on the potential, what you can do to improve it, the positive aspect? And then that's another frequency and you will attract according to that. So we have a lot of freedom within where we are and what we're doing. And we should never underestimate the value of what we're doing.
Right. You know, I love that you put in the book the Serenity Prayer.
Yes.
As you were talking about this, I wrote it down, and it's been so long. You know, I had one of my first mentors used to put this on her business card. And it says, God, if everybody knows this, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And that's exactly what I was just talking about, the wisdom to know what we can do something about and what we can't do anything about. And when we know that, when we're clear about that, there's so much we can do something about.
Right, because we can make a choice. Do I expose myself to this, or do I put up boundaries and move forward and do for me? You know, I think a lot of people forget about themselves. And you talk about that in here. You talk about self-care and self-love. And I'm bringing that up because I just think a lot of people go along with, you know, the flow, and they accept things where maybe they shouldn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, what do I want? What do I really want? Instead of going along, and you talk about this in the book.
Well, actually, there's a chapter about what I call the inner compass. And that refers to, that's one of my many books. It's called Find and Follow Your Inner Compass. And this is again, In other words, so many people, I call it the difference between self-referral and other referral. Most people have been programmed, again, from childhood to please other people. So their antennas are, they're listening to, you know, what does mom want? What does dad want? How do I make my teachers happy? How do I make my friends happy? And social media has not helped this.
No, it has not.
And so, but then there's what I call self-referral, is that when you go in and you work on your own connection to your higher power, and you try to, that's what I mean by the inner compass. Am I in harmony with God's plan for me, not with my mother's plan for me, or my father's plan for me, or my friend's plan? And that takes a lot of courage in today's society. But that's actually also where our power is. When you're in alignment with your higher self, with the God force in you, amazing things happen.
Yes. Yes.
It's true.
I can attest to that. I can attest to that, because, you know, God takes care of us, and we just have to know that and believe it and connect. And I think the more we connect with the divine, and this is what I really push a lot of, Barbara, and I don't want to get into it, tons of it, but I teach the audience to connect with the divine every day. I tell them to bring in that light, to run the light through. I tell them to bring up the light from Mother Earth, because once you connect, it's like plugging in. It's like plugging in your computer.
It is.
You know, and I don't know how I can get this, if we could all just plug in and not worry about, you know, what other people think, and forget about that.
But again, it's for most people today, it's because they've lost the connection to begin with. And because there's so much noise and there's so much information overload, it really takes a conscious effort from, I mean, most people, when they come to me, I have in my Inner Compass book, and I don't remember, there's a chapter on the Inner Compass in the book we're talking about. But I have this Inner Compass exercise where I say to people that every day it's a kind of mindfulness, as you're saying, that you have to take the time to stop looking at everything else out there, stop listening to everyone else, and just try to go within and ask yourself, does this situation feel loving and kind? Is this situation healthy? I mean, you can ask yourself these questions, and then you know the answer to that. If it feels good or it doesn't feel good, if you feel that it's in harmony with the highest and best. For example, your little story about going to the movie theater, that didn't feel good. I mean, that's a perfect example of, you know, why was it such bad energy? What was that about? And how do I tackle that? So it demands from us who are on this pathway that we remind ourselves and we think about these things every single day. So when I have clients, I don't just listen to them. They get homework every time they go to me, exercises, things that they have to work on, whether it's meditation or the inner compass or choosing more wisely, specific things to work on, because our old programming has so much momentum that it takes a conscious decision on our part to change the momentum.
We have to reprogram. I've been reprogramming my mind for a while now, because a few years back, I got to tell you this, and I've told this to the audience. I went into a store and I said something that my mother would have said to the sales clerk. And I don't even know why it came out of my mouth or where it came from, but it just came out. And I was so embarrassed. And I thought, oh, I would never say that. Why did I say that? That was something my mom would say. But then I realized, this is a few years back, that it's the programming. And then I realized you have to start changing your thoughts, because if you don't, you're going to continue on with that program.
That's exactly what you're absolutely right. It's the automatic, it's conditioned responses. And until I always say to people, as long as you are unconscious, as long as you're unaware of what you're doing, you can't do anything about it. It happens automatically. So waking up is about, first of all, taking your power back by becoming aware of this mechanism. If we don't understand the mechanism of mind, then we are innocent victims of things we don't understand. So waking up is a process, and it takes a lot of work. I call it mental training. In other words, to practice observing what I've got going on, and then to be able to ask yourself, Is this the highest good? Is this respectful? Is this behavior? As you say, what you just said is a perfect example of that automatic response that somehow is in most of us. We have those things.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
it's interesting. You get older and you realize that, or hopefully you realize that, and then you go to change it. I want to bring up the social media really quick, because what I've noticed from the social media, and I used to be like this too, but it took me a while. Everybody wants to be seen.
yes.
Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. But then, how can I say this? When you do connect with that higher power, you can say God, divine, whatever you want. You don't have that need as much. Can you talk about that? Why do you think?
Well, again, as far as I can see, the desire for love and approval of other people, because we've been programmed the way we have been programmed, we have our worthiness, and there's actually something in the book about it. We have been programmed. I call it performance-based worth. That's, in other words, we're taught from an early age, it's how good grades you get in school, how beautiful you are, how much money you have. It's all performance-based.
Right. Our society has done this, though.
Exactly. But the real, as I say, everyone has inherent worth. Inherent worth is your God-given nature. In other words, that you are a divine soul to begin with. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to
prove yourself.
Exactly. So that's the difference between inherent worth and performance-based worth. And our society is almost 100% driven by performance-based worth. That's how we from an early age, we learn to judge each other in that way. And it's terrible. It's driving everybody crazy.
Well, yeah. And I just want to talk a little bit. I see a lot of this came from Hollywood, because they put the shows together that they wanted to, this is what I think, and I want to know what you think, to put this narrative out there, to make people think this way instead of thinking for themselves. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but again, I think it's more complicated than that, because Hollywood is also reflecting back to what we've got going on. So in other words, there's nobody bought the stuff. So again, it still comes back to, what is it that I can do about these things? And what again, so we have to be the leaders in this change. And it's not going to come from out there. It's going to come from in here.
Yeah.
So again, so the fact that you can identify these trends, the way society is, that's a good thing, because then you can do something different and you can speak up and add your voice to the voice. I mean, that's what you're doing, the high road to humanity. That's what I'm doing when I write these books, trying to make this paradigm shift happen. But it demands that each one of us is a living, breathing example of it.
Right. I want to ask you about, let's rewind a little bit. In your book, I just am so curious to hear what you say. So, relationships, siblings. God, I always put myself out there, but I have kids. I have 2 daughters, and they don't always get along. But talk about the sibling relationships.
Well, again,
it's sisters,
I mean, it's really important to understand that even if one is in a biological relationship, in other words, your sisters, your brothers, I mean, that people are coming, the soul comes in at different levels of consciousness. So even in a family, I have 3 kids myself. I mean, they're so different. I said the fact that sometimes I have 3 sons. Like, how could they possibly be so different? The same father, the same mother, the same house, the same food.
Yeah.
But there are other factors going on. The one is a creative soul. The one is very sensitive, or the one is a mathematical. I mean, so it's really, I believe the myth of family it's very problematic for us, because we think because we're in a biological relationship that we have a kinship, and often we don't.
Right. Thanks for saying that, because I agree with you.
My own background, my family had always had so much contempt for everything that I was doing, the spiritual path. And my own mother used to say, "Oh, that's Barbara and her spiritual bullshit." I said, so again, the levels of consciousness, just because it was a biological relationship, it wasn't my real family. I'm much more in the family with you, for example, because
Yeah.
we're okay. So I always say to everyone, the myth of family is driving everyone crazy.
Yes.
So
Yes, I agree
why?
with you. I agree with you because I am nothing like my sisters and I was nothing like my mom. My dad and I had a good relationship, but I don't even talk to my sisters anymore, which may sound harsh to people, but I'm at a different level. I have nothing in common and apparently
So the myth of family is something that gives so much anguish to so many people because
right. Right.
it's
Right.
based on flawed premises. It's based on the premise that because we're biologically related, that
We're supposed to get along.
exactly, and it's
So we
not
don't.
true.
Oh my God.
So you gotta forget that one. I write about it a lot in this book about what I call the myth of family. So there's stuff
Yeah,
about it.
I
But
know.
again, so again, if we go back to the healthy models, it's based on the healthy functional relationship. The number one rule is respect, that we treat each other with respect. And then I say over and over again, it's really, really important to understand that love and agreement are two different things. A lot of people have the childish belief that if you love me, you'll do what I want. And
Yeah.
that's a childish belief. In
Yeah.
a mature relationship, you're able to say, I love you, sweetheart, and I have a different opinion. So we have to be able to separate.
And respect that opinion. Respect
Yeah,
the opinion. It
exactly.
goes back to respect again.
Exactly. So we're back to, so when I have couples there, I have couples who come to therapy also. They
Yeah.
sit in chairs behind me, and
Yeah.
I try to get them to be able to talk about the things that they disagree with each other about in a healthy, respectful way. And the ones who manage to do it, their relationship gets better.
I love it. Well, another thing you talk about, guys, this is a really good book, you guys. You got to check it out. But one thing you talked about was it hit home with me. You can't make another person happy or unhappy. And
Awesome.
that again is conditioning. You know, we are conditioned to think that we're supposed to like make our partner or our person happy, but we're not. And we're not.
But the other thing that's really important to understand, because it's a bit more subtle than just what you're saying, it is that usually if it's our partner or so on, each person has their own programming. And if they like something, that makes them happy. And if they don't like it, it makes them unhappy. So in other words, in every situation, you have an event, and then you have how do we relate to this event? So people have the idea, you know, that if you do this or you like this, that it's because of something that happened out there, but it's because of the way you interpret things that you experience things as you do.
Okay.
But if you're in a close relationship, say with your husband or your partner or your child, you know this person very well, so you know their belief system. So therefore, you know what that person would like you to do so you can make them happy. And we fall into that.
Yes.
Because then we become like this people pleaser doormat syndrome where you give up your own right to be yourself, to have your own feelings and opinion, because you know, if I want to please him or her, that I should do this, that, and the other. So again, when people
We
come to
lose
me,
ourselves. We lose
we lose
ourselves.
ourselves. And that's, again, there's several chapters in this book about that, how to take your power back and how to be assertive and set healthy boundaries in a respectful, constructive way. I never say to people that you should be a bitch and you shouldn't be kind, but you can be assertive and in a good way.
I agree with you. And I always say that too. We're on the same page as far as that goes. Because you can be assertive and be kind about it. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to curse. You don't have to be, you know, you can be assertive and be kind at the same time. And
It's
that's
so
what,
it's
yeah.
so important what you're saying. I have a chapter where it's called, it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. It's exactly what you're saying, that you can set a healthy boundary, you can be assertive, and you can do it in a respectful, kind way.
Yeah.
So,
you talk about learning to take better care of ourselves. And it's true. You know, we're always expecting, you know, again, a lot of people are looking to the outside. And, you know, it took me a long time. I'll just speak for myself and you can tell me for you, you know, to learn to do things for myself. I was a workaholic and I had to literally say, okay, no, go do this for you. You know, you have to consciously say, no, I'm going to not do this. I'm going to do this for myself. And that's it. Do you run across that a lot where people are
Like
just
all the time? I mean, people have really don't have a strong sense of what's good for them, when to say no. And that's why, I mean, I have a lot of people who come here because they're on sick leave because they're stressed out of their minds. And that's always what you're talking about, that they have neglected themselves. They haven't had healthy boundaries about what they would do and wouldn't do. They haven't taken time for themselves. So it's all connected. It's all connected. So your inner worth is also reflected in how you treat other people. They do go together. Healthy self-care also, it automatically happens that you're also kind to other people. Why wouldn't you be?
yeah. Well, and you can tell when someone lashes out. Now I can't, of course, I'm in a different place, but when someone lashes out, you know, I can tell they're unhappy and they don't like my light.
Mm.
And that's happened a lot
Mm.
since I have, you know, and I think a lot of people have that. If you're a bright light, it seems like we're really getting the brunt of it out there. Have you experienced that as well? I want to know.
Well, I think that if you're a bright light, you're also a great inspiration to other people. I mean, I know when people come to me, usually when they start working on these things with me, the most amazing things happen in their lives. And so it's also contagious being a bright light. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. But I mean, when you go out into the world, you don't have, see, now what I do is, you're going to laugh. I'm into energy. Are you into energy, Barbara? I bet you
It's
are.
all energy.
It's all energy. So now what I do, I'll teach the audience this. I push out my love and light.
Mhm.
I get in the car
Mhm.
and I push out the love and light. And then I make evergreen light. Okay. Then I get everything I'm looking for at the grocery store or wherever I'm going. Now, if I forget to push out that love and light, it's a different, because yesterday when I went to the movies, I didn't push out the love and light.
But
But
that's really good what you're saying. I mean, again, the more aware you are of this, I mean, again, you're a very powerful being, but that's a wonderful thing. You should celebrate it every day, right?
I do.
Good.
No, I just want the world, you know, I think I'm going to save the world here, Barbara, but I just want, don't you feel like this sometimes? If you could just get everybody to wake up and to
Of
connect.
course, but again, getting real, I call my approach
Getting real. Yes, you do.
So this about, you know, I definitely agree with you. I would like everyone to wake up right now. But what is it that I actually, I can tell you a story that really, apropos what we're talking about.
Right.
This book just came out, and you know, where I live here in Europe, there's a war in Ukraine, really terrible
Yeah.
things. And it's not very far from where I live. And about a week ago, I got an email from a very big publisher in Ukraine. I have been writing about, you know, how can we help? What can we do to support the people in Ukraine and all that? But anyway, I got an email from a very big publisher in Ukraine who said that he had just discovered my book, Healthy Models, and that he wanted to publish it in Ukraine because he thought my explanation of the democratic principles would support them in their fight for freedom, because that's what they're fighting for.
Oh my God.
And so I wrote back to him and said, I was just so moved by that. And I said, yes, of course, I would be so honored. And I have given it to him for free. They don't have to pay me for it because I want to do this. In answer to your question, when we get an opportunity to serve and spread the light, yes, it's great. So I have been putting out my hope that, you know, please show me how I can support the people in Ukraine. And it came to me in an email that I can do this.
That's amazing. Well, I want to ask you, we've been on for a while, but I want to ask you before we get out of here today. I know you and I could just talk forever, and there's so much information in here, you guys. It's really cool. What's it like where you are? Are people waking up? I want to hear about, you know, the energy. Are they starting to realize these things? What do you see?
Well, the thing about Scandinavia, I live in Scandinavia, and it's a more equal, homogeneous society than the United States. The divisions that we have in the United States right now are so blatant.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the society here is more, you know, we have universal health care. They have free college education. So many of the things that are really problematic in the United States that people are really struggling with. This societies here in Scandinavia, they have already worked that out. So there's universal education, free university, free healthcare. So it makes the tensions between the different
Changes
segments.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and in all of these sort of studies about, you know, where the most happy people are, it's always the people in Scandinavia, but it's probably because the outer conditions are more smooth here. I know when I first came to Scandinavia, after all my dramatic things happening in the United States, I was really, really surprised how different it is here. So it's quite, there's quite a few things that, I mean, the Scandinavians can learn from the Americans, but the Americans could learn from the Scandinavians. So it's not quite the same as it is in the States.
Yeah. And I bet and what do they think about what's going on? The craziness. I mean, when you watch the craziness happening, I mean, honest to God, going on. And I guess my biggest thing since I saw this movie yesterday is and I want to know I'm just going to ask you because you're in another country, but there's all this trafficking of human trafficking that has come about, and all these people who have come to the United States, like right now, and you've probably heard this, it's been in the news, there are 85,000 children unaccounted for right now.
But I mean, it's the same. Europe has also the migrant crisis that from the Middle East. It's exactly the same as in the United States. And the people in Europe are also struggling with, I mean, again, what do we do about this? People, I mean, if you say at the border, the southern border of America, it's just like the southern border here in Europe. It's the same thing. People drowning in the Mediterranean, people coming from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan smuggled in, and then you've got the North Africa. So I mean, the world it's the same thing. I mean, the planet Earth is really, really in dire crisis. And we have the climate change, we have all of these things happening at the same time. And then here in Europe, we have a terrible war. That Putin has invaded another country and killing people there every day. I mean, it's just insane. And so
you're close by.
Everywhere we look. So again, wherever you are, whatever you do, please do it.
Right. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think, and then I'll let you leave the audience with your opinion. I feel that if we all go within, just like you and I've been talking about, and we raise our vibrations, that these things will subside and things will be better. And I don't mean to sound Pollyanna about it. I really believe that.
I really believe it too.
Do you?
Yes, absolutely. That's the only thing we can do. I would like to say also before we say goodbye that I'm giving away a free ebook.
Oh, cool.
And so it's a short introduction to the power of the mind and many of the things I teach. It's called The Mental Laws, Understanding the Way the Mind Works. And if you go in on my website, you will see on the front page.
What's your website?
The website is www.beamteam, BEAMTEAM.com.
Beam Team.
Yeah, we're the Beam Team. We're here to beam you up.
I love it. That's so awesome. Okay.
But if you send me an email to info@beamteam.com,
okay,
and all you have to do is write in the subject line, the mental laws.
Okay.
We will send you your free ebook within 24 hours. And this is a short introduction to many of the things we've been talking about, the power of the mind, the power of focus, how you can use it to improve your life, improve your health, improve your situation.
Okay, so I'll put that in all the comments and stuff. How do people get in touch with you? If they really want, can they go through the website? If they want
to go to the website, and also just so everybody knows, I have sessions with Zoom like we're doing now with people all over the world. So if you would like to have a talk with me, send me an email. Again, the same email address, info@beamteam.com. I will get it. And going on the website, you can see all the books we talked about. You can see about my sessions. The videos will put you and me up once we've talked. So there's a lot of stuff you can look at and join in if you would like. I'd be very happy to hear from everyone.
Yeah, I gotta give you credit. I mean, you really have spent your whole life trying to help humanity. You really have. I mean, thank you. God bless. Yeah. I mean, and as far as the people go in Ukraine, are there people coming over to Scandinavia?
Yes, they do. I actually am coaching someone from Ukraine for free because that's another way that I can help
Help
them.
that you
So,
can.
so in other words, Europe has been flooded with when Putin invaded Ukraine, several million people fled right away. Especially women, and the men couldn't, but the women and children. So there are lots of, also here in Denmark, Ukrainians who we take them in and try to help them. So
That's wonderful.
up close and personal, it's really a lot of heavy stuff going on.
You'll have to come back and see us again.
I'd be most happy to come back anytime you'd like. We have many things. We just got started now.
I know, we could talk for hours. Her book is called Healthy Models for Relationships, the basic principles, you guys, behind good relationships with your partner, family, parents, children, friends, colleagues, and all the other people in your life. It's by Barbara Berger. Barbara, it's been a pleasure. You're just amazing. And thank you for coming on the high road today.
Thank you for having me, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, we will. All right, you guys, if you want an angel reading, go to my website, nancyyearout.com. You can book your date and time. I've got all the cool messages up there from Archangel Gabriel, just so you know. The podcast is there. I just redid my website. The podcast is there. The YouTube channel is there. My blog is there. So definitely check out my website. Barbara Berger, it's been a pleasure. Everybody take care. I'm going to get out of here. Have a terrific weekend, and God bless.